We have some breaking news for you and sad news on that from the music world. Legendary musician and co-founder of Van Halen, Eddie Van Halen, has died.
The electric guitar became the beating heart of rock and roll, and few musicians ever pushed that instrument further than Eddie Van Halen. For many fans, he was not just a great guitarist, but one of the rare players who completely changed what people believed a guitar could do. His sound was explosive, inventive, and instantly recognizable. But the story behind his rise is filled with surprising twists, backstage connections, personal battles, and moments that reveal just how extraordinary his journey really was. Before Van Halen became a global hard rock force, the band caught the attention of one of the biggest names in the business. In 1976, Gene Simmons of Kiss was scouting talent for Casablanca Records when he saw Van Halen perform in West Hollywood. He immediately recognized something special. Simmons arranged studio time for the band to record a 12-song demo, then brought them to New York for overdubs at Jimi Hendrix's Electric Lady Studios. He even had them perform a showcase for Kiss manager Bill Aucoin.
Valerie Bertinelli just confirmed the news on Twitter, writing that he was the best father I could ever ask for. My heart is broken, and I don't think I will ever fully recover from this loss. I love you so much, Pop.
Although Aucoin chose not to sign them, Simmons remained deeply impressed by what he had seen, and his belief in Eddie Van Halen did not end there. After the group returned to California, Simmons brought Eddie and his brother Alex into another major opportunity. He recruited them to help record demos for Kiss's Love Gun era material. During that period, Eddie's guitar work left such a strong impression that when Ace Frehley later recorded Christine 16, his solo reportedly mirrored Eddie's earlier attempt note for note. That detail alone says a lot. Even before becoming a household name, Eddie was already influencing established rock stars from the shadows. He had the kind of talent that other musicians noticed immediately, even if the wider world had not caught up yet. Ironically, a few years later, Eddie nearly made a shocking career move of his own. Around 1982, his tensions with Van Halen frontman David Lee Roth had grown so exhausting that he seriously considered joining Kiss, who were then heading toward a split with Ace Frehley.
When Ed passed, it came at the dying young is never a good idea, right? But in Ed's case, it was particularly difficult because it was at the height of COVID.
According to Simmons, Eddie told him plainly that he was tired of fighting with Roth and wanted out. But Simmons refused the idea, telling Eddie there was not enough room for him in Kiss, and that he belonged in a band where he could lead the musical direction. It was a revealing moment. Even then, Simmons understood that Eddie was not meant to fit into someone else's machine. He was too important, too original, and too musically powerful to be anything but a central creative force. As brilliant as Eddie was on stage, his personal life carried a much darker undertone. In his early years, he learned a harsh version of the touring musician's lifestyle from his father, Jan Van Halen, a Dutch jazz woodwind player. Eddie later recalled how nervous he used to feel before performances and how he asked his father how to deal with that fear. Jan's answer was simple but destructive: a cigarette and a drink. For a young Eddie, it seemed to work. The alcohol took the edge off, calmed his nerves, and gave him a sense of control. But that early lesson planted the seeds of a struggle that would follow him for decades. What began as a way to manage stage fright eventually became a much deeper problem. Eddie later admitted that he drank heavily even as a teenager, saying he would get drunk before going to high school.
So we didn't really have the opportunity to get close enough and hold him while we were talking to him. He was behind a thing, or we were in a hazmat suit.
He also revealed that vodka became his drink of choice after a recommendation from his science teacher, a detail that sounds almost unbelievable but says a lot about the strange path his life took. Over the years, alcohol became a constant presence, and the price he paid for that dependence was enormous. In 1988, after his father died from an alcohol-related illness, Eddie said he had quit drinking, but the victory did not last. He returned to heavy drinking and continued battling addiction until he entered rehab in 2007, a move that was serious enough to cause him to miss Van Halen's induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yet even while fighting those personal demons, Eddie Van Halen remained one of the most revolutionary musicians rock had ever seen. He did not simply play the guitar well, he reinvented its language. His most famous innovation was the dazzling two-handed tapping technique, often described as playing the fretboard almost like a piano. Instead of using one hand to fret notes and the other to strum in the traditional way, Eddie used both hands directly on the neck, unlocking speed, fluidity, and melodic possibilities that felt almost superhuman. The result was a sound that seemed to explode out of the speakers with unmatched precision and force.
Eddie Van Halen here, telling you, keep playing, man. Gotta keep playing. It's the only thing there is, music, man. Keep playing, all right?
That technique became immortal through songs like Eruption, where Eddie's playing sounded less like conventional rock guitar and more like a musical breakthrough happening in real time. It was fast, fearless, and unlike anything most listeners had ever heard before. In that moment, Eddie Van Halen did not just earn admiration. He changed the future of hard rock guitar forever. His influence spread through his contemporaries, inspired countless younger players, and permanently reshaped the sound of metal and rock.
I mean, Eddie Van Halen's got an amazing technique, all this sort of hammering on and everything. I can't do that, but you know, at least they're stretching the horizons and everything, you know, which is great.
The untold truth of Eddie Van Halen is not only that he was a genius, but that behind the brilliance was a man navigating pressure, conflict, addiction, and expectation while still finding a way to transform music itself. What Eddie Van Halen was doing on the guitar wasn't just new. It was so radically different that even those closest to him recognized how valuable and vulnerable it was. During the band's early days, his brother Alex Van Halen reportedly gave him unusual advice before live shows. Turn your back to the audience while playing, not for showmanship, but for protection. The fear was real. What Eddie was doing hadn't been seen before, and there was genuine concern that other guitarists might try to copy his techniques before Van Halen had the chance to fully establish their sound. That sense of control extended beyond how he played. It shaped how he built his instruments, too. Eddie wasn't satisfied with off-the-shelf guitars. If something didn't sound right, he didn't hesitate to tear it apart and rebuild it. Using tools like saws and sandpaper, he customized his gear until it matched the sound he heard in his head. His most legendary creation became known as the Frankenstein, or Frankenstrat, a guitar he assembled himself using a $50 body and an $80 neck. It wasn't just an instrument, it was a statement, raw, imperfect, and entirely original, just like the music he created with it.
Yelling, screaming questions, and Dave just wasn't answering any of them. He was doing his hop and bop and best piece with the pops.
The guitar became so iconic that a replica eventually found its way into the Smithsonian, cementing its place in music history. To Eddie, though, it was something far more personal. He didn't see it as a project or an invention. He simply called it his baby. By the mid-1980s, Van Halen had exploded into one of the biggest rock bands in the world. But in the broader music landscape, there was only one artist operating at a comparable level of global dominance: Michael Jackson. With the unstoppable success of Thriller, Jackson had redefined pop music, blending genres in a way that reached every kind of listener. And tucked inside that record was a track that would unexpectedly connect two completely different musical worlds: Beat It. The song needed something extra, an edge that would push it beyond pop and into something harder. That's where Eddie came in. Legendary producer Quincy Jones invited him into the studio, though Eddie didn't even know exactly what he'd be working on. While Jackson briefly stepped out, Eddie listened to a rough version of the track. What happened next was pure instinct. He suggested a few arrangement tweaks and then recorded 2 blazing guitar solos, completely improvised, within about half an hour. When Jackson returned, Eddie casually told him he had changed parts of the song. It could have gone either way, but instead of resistance, Jackson loved it, especially the fast, high-energy sections that gave the track its punch. That solo became one of the most recognizable guitar moments in pop history. Even more surprising, Eddie didn't take payment for the session. He treated it as a favor to Quincy Jones, and initially didn't even want credit. But once Beat It hit #1, the secret didn't stay hidden for long. At the height of that success, just as the album 1984 pushed Van Halen to their commercial peak, everything shifted. Frontman David Lee Roth left the band, chasing a solo career and leaving a massive gap behind. His presence had been larger than life, charismatic, unpredictable, impossible to replicate. But the band wasn't ready to fall apart. They needed a new voice, and quickly. The search that followed was as unexpected as it was bold. Among the names considered was Patti Smith, who later revealed that Eddie personally asked her to join the band. The offer was serious, but it came with secrecy. The band didn't want their eventual choice to feel like a backup plan. Another surprising possibility was Daryl Hall, one half of the hugely successful Hall & Oates. The idea of his smooth, pop-driven voice fronting a hard rock band like Van Halen seemed almost surreal, but it showed just how open and even desperate the band was during that transition. Daryl Hall eventually confirmed the rumors himself. Eddie Van Halen had reached out, and the offer was real. But Hall chose to pass, leaving that strange what-if moment as just another fascinating footnote in rock history. It was one of many crossroads in Eddie's life, though the challenges ahead would be far more serious than any lineup change. By the mid-1990s, Eddie Van Halen's health had begun to decline in ways that were impossible to ignore. During the tour supporting the album Balance, the physical toll became so severe that he darkly nicknamed it the Ambulance Tour. Night after night, he pushed through intense hip pain, refusing to slow down despite the damage it was causing. For years, he delayed surgery, continuing to perform at a world-class level while his body struggled to keep up. It wasn't until 1999 that he finally underwent a hip replacement procedure, one so extensive that it was described as receiving a bionic hip after bone deterioration in the joint had reached a critical stage. But the hip issues were only part of a much larger battle. Eddie had been a heavy smoker for decades, a habit deeply tied to his lifestyle and the pressures of fame. Though he later switched to vaping in 2015, the damage had already been done. In 2000, doctors discovered cancer in his mouth. The diagnosis was devastating. That same year, he underwent surgery that removed roughly a third of his tongue. It was a life-altering procedure, one that would have ended many careers, but Eddie kept going. The fight didn't stop there. The cancer spread to his throat, forcing him into ongoing treatment. By 2002, he was declared cancer-free, offering a brief moment of relief. But even then, the battle was far from over. For years, he reportedly traveled to Germany for specialized treatments, quietly continuing his fight away from the spotlight. In a surprising and controversial statement, Eddie later suggested that his cancer may not have been caused by smoking, but rather by repeatedly holding metal guitar picks made of brass and copper in his mouth, exactly where the cancer had developed. He also pointed to constant exposure to electromagnetic energy from recording equipment. Whether accurate or not, it revealed how he tried to make sense of what was happening to him. In 2020, the situation took a heartbreaking turn. The cancer returned, more aggressive than before, and this time it spread to his brain. Despite everything he had endured, this was a fight even Eddie Van Halen could not win. On October 6, 2020, he passed away at St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica, California, surrounded by those closest to him: his wife, his brother Alex Van Halen, and his son Wolfgang Van Halen. The news of Eddie Van Halen's death didn't just travel, it rippled across the entire music world with a kind of quiet shock that only comes when something truly irreplaceable is gone. Tributes began pouring in from every corner of the industry, from legendary rock icons to younger musicians who had grown up studying his every move. For many, this wasn't just the loss of a guitarist. It was the loss of the guitarist, the one who had redrawn the boundaries of what was even possible on 6 strings. Artists who had once stood beside him on stage, and others who had only known him through records, all echoed the same sentiment. There was before Eddie, and there was after Eddie. His influence wasn't subtle. It was seismic. Entire generations of players had built their style trying to chase even a fraction of what he could do effortlessly. The sound he created, sharp, fluid, explosive, became a blueprint for hard rock and metal, but no one ever truly replicated it, because it wasn't just technique, it was instinct, it was feel, it was something deeper. Among the most emotional tributes came from his son, Wolfgang Van Halen, who shared a message that resonated far beyond fans of the band. He didn't just speak about Eddie as a legend, but as a father, someone who had been a constant presence, a source of guidance, humor, and quiet strength. In that moment, the image of Eddie shifted. Not the larger-than-life performer, not the innovator, but the man behind it all. The loss became more personal, more human. His brother, Alex Van Halen, had spent a lifetime beside him, on stage, in studios, through success and struggle. Together, they had built something that went far beyond music. Their connection was the foundation of Van Halen itself, and now, for the first time, that rhythm, both literal and emotional, was broken. Fans returned to the music in waves. Songs like Eruption, Jump, and Panama took on a new weight, no longer just expressions of energy and creativity, but reminders of what had been lost. Each note felt more final, more significant, and yet, at the same time, more permanent. Because that's the strange truth about legends like Eddie Van Halen. They don't really disappear, not completely. His techniques are still studied, his sound is still chased, his recordings still feel alive as if they were made yesterday instead of decades ago. In the end, Eddie Van Halen's story isn't just about fame, innovation, or even survival. It's about impact. The kind that doesn't fade when the spotlight turns off. The kind that lingers in every note played by the generations that followed him. Because what Eddie created wasn't limited to his own career. It became part of the DNA of rock music itself. Long after his passing, his presence still echoes through amplifiers, rehearsal rooms, and stages around the world. Every time a guitarist pushes beyond what they thought was possible, every time someone experiments instead of playing it safe, a piece of Eddie's spirit is there. Not in imitation, but in inspiration. That fearless willingness to break rules, to build something new out of nothing, that's what truly defined him. And maybe that's why his story continues to resonate so deeply. It's not perfect, it's not polished. It's filled with triumph, conflict, pain, and reinvention. But that's exactly what makes it real. Eddie Van Halen wasn't just a legend because of what he achieved. He was a legend because of what he overcame and what he gave back through his music. Even now, fans continue to rediscover his work, hearing something new each time they press play. A subtle detail, a hidden layer, a burst of creativity that feels just as fresh today as it did decades ago. That's rare, that's timeless. So the next time you hear that unmistakable sound, that lightning-fast run, that explosive tone, that moment that makes you stop and think, how is that even possible? Just remember who made it possible. Remember the man who refused to follow the rules and instead rewrote them. If you enjoyed this story and want more deep dives into the lives behind the legends, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Drop a comment below and let me know your favorite Eddie Van Halen moment or performance. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story. There's always another untold story waiting just around the corner, and I'll see you in the next video.